What do you think is worse, a child having a deadbeat father that's inconsistent and comes in and out of the child's life, or a child having a deadbeat father that just abandons the child and stays away, and why? Me personally, I feel like having an inconsistent father is worse because I feel like it's setting the child up for disappointment and broken promises.
So I'm going to tell you why I disagree with this. And this is not a knock to the creator or anybody in the comments who agrees, because I could understand why you would feel the way you feel about this. But the answer to this question is you don't fucking know. And you have no way of knowing. So my father has always been in and out of my life. And when I was a kid, that shit was hurtful. When Hurricane Katrina hit back in the day in New Orleans, I was in the Army. I was in my mid 20s. I was on a search and rescue team for the state. And I went down to New Orleans and I did search and rescue and security. And I had a phone call with my mom one day. My mom has always kept a cordial relationship with my father. And she said something to me on the phone that really set me off. Like towards the end of our conversation, she said, "I spoke to your father today and he told me to tell you hi." And I lost it. I was so pissed off. At that point in my life, I had thought I resolved all my issues with my father. Like I thought I was cool. I thought I'd forgiven him until what she said triggered me. And I had my father's phone number. I called him and said, "Can we talk?" And we talked on the phone that night. For the first time, I actually listened to my father. I listened to his side of the story. It doesn't excuse him not being there, but I listened to his side of the story. Like I said, when I was a child, even obviously into my young adult life, that shit was hurtful. But how would I know as a young hurt child that years later I would start a podcast about fatherhood? And not only would I start a podcast about fatherhood, but that my father would be my very first guest, and that I would hear more about his story, and that we would have a heartwarming conversation, that we would laugh, we would cry, we would be vulnerable with each other on a podcast about that experience, about him not being there, about him being in and out of my life. And how would I know that I would post that same podcast episode in a private Facebook group that I started for co-parenting fathers, and that dozens of men would reach out to me and say how it inspired them to reach out to their fathers, and how it inspired them to heal and to mend their relationships, and how it inspired them to resolve the trauma that they had surrounding their relationships with their fathers. So what I'm trying to say to you is that you don't know. You don't know how it's going to impact your kids. You don't know if things are happening to them or they're happening for them. You don't know how it's going to mold them and what it's going to turn them into. Part of the reason why I'm so passionate about being a father is because of the hurt and the pain from my father not being in my life, from him being in and out, right? From experiencing that pain. We know growth a lot of times comes from pain. I know we want to shield our kids from pain sometimes, and we want to try to help them avoid that at all costs, but we don't know what it's doing for them. So just take that with you, right? And just be the best parent you can be and show up as much as you can for your kids and guide them through that tumultuous relationship that they may have with the other parent, because you don't know what it's doing for them in their lives. Or if it's, you know, you just don't know.
I'm here to tell you that there's a lot of growth that can happen even as you experience traumatic experiences in life, as your children might experience traumatic experience through life. For example, if you're like this video I stitch here from the lady's perspective, from the man's perspective, and I love her question so much. The impact of an inconsistent parent in your child's life, especially we women. I've been there where you're just like you're desperate to want your children to have that consistent relationship. But if that is not happening, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? You're asking, what do you do? I see a lot of clients, and this come up a lot. It causes a lot of emotional turmoil, and you can easily get into the place of wanting desperately to want to change the other person. And you can change people. You can change an adult. If they want to change, they will change when they want to change, or if they never change, then make peace with that. Pick your pain, pick your battles. Sit with the discomfort of knowing it is what it is, and you show up as consistent as you can for your children. This is what I learned through therapy, through doing family therapy, and really it just gives you rest, it gives you peace, because for some reason majority of this happens with men globally, not just from where I come from in Africa. I came from a family where both of my parents were home, but that still doesn't mean that both of my parents were consistently present. They can be present physically, and hear me when I say you can be a parent, you can have both parents present in their bodies like this, physically in the home, but they can be completely checked out, detached, or they come home inconsistently. You can never have access to their heart. They are not parenting from a heart place. They are not teaching you the skills. They themselves are so tapped out, overwhelmed, burned out from doing day-to-day life that they just lack the mindset, the maturity, the capacity. You gotta know this, the capacity. And I want you to know, yes, you can get vexed, you can get anxious, you can get sad, sit with it, cry it out, stick your head in the fridge, go for a walk, take care of yourself, drink your water, drink your juice, eat your vegetable. But the reactions, maybe give it once, but let it go. Say your piece and let it go, and find next. Like Oprah will say, do the next best thing. Take the next best action. Move along yourself and the kiddos, especially if your kids, teaching them about emotions, the boy child, labeling their mood, what they're feeling. I feel angry. I feel sad. That is inconsistent. If you feel it, what you feel, guess what? Most likely your children feel it too. And don't get it wrong, you can have two parents in the household, and those children will still have those feelings of emptiness within them, the sadness, the detachment. You wonder why your children spending so much time on the video games, why they're in their room all the time, why they're not engaging with you, why they're having trouble at school, why they're not making good grades, why they're not engaging in sporting activities, why they're not upbeat, why they feel like they're dragging themselves through the house. These are the things that set the stage for trauma to build up in children as they navigate life. And this can lead to personality disorders as they grow up, and then they become issues for their partners in the future. But I'm here to say, like he said, trauma sometimes can build resilience, but it has to come from a healing place. He took the time, he called his dad, he asked the necessary questions, he even invited him to podcast. I had to do that even with my own dad, where that pain of things that happened. What happened? Trauma is all about what happened to you. Read that book, What Happened to You. And The Body Keeps the Score. It's another book that tells us the impact of trauma on our physicalities. You don't talk about it, you leave it as a skeleton in your closet, you'll become a skeleton 6 feet under quicker than you wish to be. So my point is, even with trauma, you can build yourself, you can build resilience, but that has to come from a place of awakening, of realization, of knowing, aha, this is what is happening. Have those tough conversations, find healing, meaning, purpose, and start chugging along with life, because our life be life and things be happening. All right, on that note, I'll cut it short, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you so much. Bye.